the world today. So let's say you're the CMO or marketing director or whatever you want to call it, chief revenue officer, chief fundraising officer, chief investment officer for a startup, and you are looking to raise money. Doesn't matter if you're in the fintech space, the software gaming space, the hardware space, any space. Okay? What should you do? Well, there's a lot of discussion, of course, always about whether your pitch deck should have more information or less information. And if you actually do the research, you will find there's a wide of pitch decks that have failed, which is most of them, and those that have succeeded, which is a very small number of them. So if you look at the ones that have succeeded, the ones that have successfully raised investment money, and those that have also worked to bring on high ticket clients or customers, you will find there are different types that have worked in both of those areas, whether you're seeking investment, looking for clients. Now, if you are marketing cutting edge technology and you're looking for investment money from very traditional investment sources, you may think to yourself, well, I should be going extremely conservative with my design style choices, layout choices, font choices, color choices, graphic choices, etc. But the reality is, you should not. In most probable cases, you should be thinking outside the box. Right? Why is Apple so successful? And don't tell me, well, it's a consumer packaged good. It's not the same thing as a high-tech retail, a high-tech fintech product. That's your opinion. Actually, why is Uber so successful? Why is Airbnb so successful in raising massive amounts of money? Why are all these companies successful? Why was Fiverr successful in raising a lot of money? Why was On Deck successful at raising money? Why was so many different types of capital related firms, fintech related firms successful at raising money? And why were so many of them absolute failures and went out of business before even raising money? If you look at the actual tendencies of startups in the fintech space specifically, and in other capital market areas, you will notice that, that's just an example, yeah? You'll notice that less is more, meaning less information is more powerful. And stylistically, things that break the norms are more impactful, more effective than things that are always consistently conservative and boring and make people's eyes roll to the back of their head while you're trying to pitch to them. If you want to have an impact, you have to think outside of the box. You have to be different. You cannot just do what everybody else does. If you do what everybody else does, guess what happens? You are ignored. Hello there. What does your message say? I can't see what you're saying there. Hold on, let me see. You what? You want to do something? What? I want to do something tonight. Yes, I'm doing many things tonight. I hope you have a good night too. And hello to you. If you want your pitch deck to appeal to investors who are more cutting edge, then there is absolutely no reason to stick to stodgy conservative layouts and designs. Now, if you know you're going to meet with an investor or a potential high ticket client that for some reason abhors anything different or outside of the norm, first of all, ask yourself, is that the kind of investor or high ticket client that you want? It's a very serious question. I'm not saying don't take the money if it's offered to you and you want it, but is that really the kind of investment or the kind of high ticket client that you actually want to pursue? Because if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't. I'm not saying don't go for investments. Yeah, go for the investment. Obviously, if it comes your way and you need it, if you don't have it, your business might completely fail. Well, maybe you don't have a choice. But in that case, be prepared to radically change your entire business model because you weren't daring enough to slightly modify your pitch deck. Okay? If you are going to actually distance people and investment money because of your layout choices in your pitch deck, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a high probability that was not the investor for you. That was not the right investor for you in the first place. They had no business even seeing your pitch deck, let alone you pretending like they were somehow going to do your business idea and give you the money necessary to become a successful startup. Because probably, if you're lucky, what they would actually do is run you into the ground without too much of a debt on your shoulders. That's actually what would probably happen. Okay, they're not going to save your business. They're not going to make you a fortune just because money, and they're willing to put some of it in your pocket for a while. Right? If they're that conservative that they cannot imagine thinking beyond the norms, be a good investor in your high-tech business. Right? Now, you may not understand this now because you're just really looking for the cash, but that's how it goes. Right? People who are actually serious investors, most of the time, they don't really care about your layout or your graphics or your design or your colors or the font sizes. What they care about is seeing information practical, easy to digest, easy to comprehend, bite-sized form, because they see 10 or 20 of these things a day. How are you going to make your thing else with too many words on a slide and boring graphics and boring visuals and no visual impact that basically contributes nothing to the process? Right? Even if you are now at the stage where you're beyond the introductory pitch, you're beyond the wow factor of, oh, they're doing something a little bit different. Now you're talking to the decision makers, and the decision makers are more conservative than the people that greeted you at the door and saw the first round of pitching. Well, you're probably wrong, because who hired those people at the door? The decision makers, or the people that the decision makers hired to hire those people at the door, which means they have the same values, or they adhere to the same values that the decision makers make. Otherwise, they wouldn't be people at the door. They would be doing something else, as in working for a different company, or they'd be having a completely different job, not meeting people coming to them and pitching them with investment proposals, and not coming to them pitching, business proposals, as in, offering products for sale. Right? So you need to be very careful when you are offering companies the opportunity to invest in your business, and you're doing it in such a way that you're just following the normal mean of distribution. That will never get you the best results. If you want to get the best results, you cannot be the average in the normal mean of distribution, in the normal distribution model, because then you're just Mr. Average boring. You're not memorable in any way. And unless your business is to be like a spy service, in which case you want to be not memorable in any way, right? Other than to your specific clients who need to memorize, who need to, you're the best there is. And part of that is being not memorable to anyone else, right? Unless you're in that particular business, you want to be memorable. You want to stand out from the crowd, right? If your job is to make your company stand out so that it is attractive to investors, then you need to be attractive to investors. You need to attract their money. If your job is to be attractive to potential high-ticket customers, to make sure that they're willing to buy your expensive product, then you need to stand out from the crowd so that they see you as different, so that they see you as something interesting, so that they're willing to put their money into your pockets, because they believe that your pocket will help them solve a problem, will make their life more convenient, will give them greater wealth, will make them more satisfied. Whatever it is you want to deliver to them, and more importantly, the thing that they need, right? You're not going to do that by being the boring, normal mean of distribution. You're just not. Now, you can come at me and say, oh, you don't understand. Asian clients are different, or, Middle Eastern clients are different, or South American clients are different. You're just wrong. You're stereotyping an entire people. You're assuming that they are not interested in things that are different. You're assuming that things that are a little bit cheeky, or a little bit irreverent, or a little bit deviated from the norm are somehow less effective than things that are just normal and boring. means of distribution, right? That is absolutely a failed way to think and provable, right? Even if you can demonstrate cases where there are people who stick to the absolute norm and that's all they want, right? When that's what people, and that's all that they seek, they are themselves outliers because there is no such thing who is completely the norm of distribution on every single check point. That's not a thing, right? Now, if you're going to tell me, well, no big bank is going to invest in a fintech company or a startup company of any kind, soft gaming company, hardware company, AI company, whatever it is, crypto, nobody's going to invest in. They're a big bank and it deviates from the norm. You are provably wrong. You can use Google, right, or any other large LLM thing like Claude or any one of these other ones, right? Chat GPT or Perplexity or any of these things, and you can find easily examples of successful pitch decks which received investment money from traditional sources like big banks or other sources like VC firms in the high-tech space, where thinking outside the box succeeded and we're doing things the boring way failed. There's no shortage of these examples. These are in fact the normal set of examples you will find, which again does not mean that you cannot find examples going your way, right? I'm just saying, pointing out that the normal course of events, that they appreciate things that are slightly outside of the box more than just traditional things all the time, for the very simple reason that they see things that are boring 90+% of the time because everybody assumes, oh, that's the safe thing to do. We got to do the safe thing. No, you don't. You don't have to do the safe thing, right? What you need to do is a successful thing. You need to raise money if you're seeking funds, and you need to get customers if you're seeking customers. You have no business. So if your business, well, then you better get raising funds. And the way that you do it successfully is to not be like everybody else. Maybe you were programmed culturally that way. I don't know. Maybe you are from a family or a lot of people, or you were trained at a job where that's your way of thinking. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And statistically, you will get crushed like everybody else, or you can think different and act different and have a smidgen of a chance of success compared to anyone else that you're competing against. You're still probably going to fail, but at least you'll have a tiny chance to succeed. And I say you're still probably going to fail because remember, more than 90% of startups fail. That is just par for the course. That's what venture capitalists bet their money on, right? They are aware that for every 10 firms that they invest in, there's that at least 9 of them are going to go out of business within 5 years. And usually it's within 2 to 3 years, but 5 years, give it that on average, because there are a lot of firms that do stretch it out. So you could say the typical firm goes out of business within 5 years. It is really closer to 2 to 3 years, because after 2 years, usually the investors, if you can't successfully do another round of, right? So it's not likely that your business will even survive 3 full years if you can't raise enough funds, or more important, can't generate enough revenue to be profitable within years. Because these days, investors care about profit a lot more than they did 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago. Like nowadays, profitability within 3 to 5 years. And they stick to that. And many of them are demanding within 2 to 3 years. They assume that because of advents like AI, because guess what? Everyone has access to the same AI tools, which means your path to profitability is not sped up or slowed down by the fact that there are AI tools if you're using them the same way that everybody else is using them to reduce certain costs but it doesn't really reduce those costs because you still now have to spend more money and and time and resource and labor on QAing what the AIs have done, right? Whereas before you just created it yourself and you knew the quality was good. Now you have to assume the machine will do a good job, and even when you assume that, you still have to check it, and it is not usually 100%. Even after you make edits after edits, you need to go back and forth and back and forth, and eventually, guess what? You still need to manually do the final product at some level. Yes, it may create the bulk of it for you, but you still need to do quite a lot of edits yourself. There's no getting around that. So that's my quick summation for you of less is more. And more, by the way, is less. Meaning the more content you put on a slide, the less effective it is. The less content you put on a slide, the more effective it is, the more impactful it is. And it doesn't matter, again, if it's an introductory pitch or a secondary pitch to a decision maker or a tertiary pitch to a decision maker. By the way, you shouldn't have to do secondary pitch decks generally. Your first one should be good enough to get you through the door. And by the time you're speaking to a decision maker, they shouldn't be interested in pitch decks anyway. They should be interested in the bottom line. Show me the business plan, show me the use of funds documents, all the boring stuff, right? That's actually perfectly fine. Like the normal Word documents or Google documents, right? Spreadsheets. Those are the things the decision makers actually care about, right? If they're actually seriously going to invest. Once they've seen the introductory pitch deck, if they're big thinkers, they don't need a heavily detailed slideshow. That's just not something they need. You can think it is because that's your experience. And you can say, well, it worked when I worked for such and such big bank or such and such big company. Such and such big company was never looking for a small investment or even a medium-sized investment, right? Right. You guys were already in a big company. So you don't actually have any practical experience in what it is to raise money from big companies for a startup. And if you do have experience raising money from big companies for a startup, then you know exactly what I'm talking about is correct. And if you disagree with it, it's either because your style is different, which is perfectly fine, or more importantly, you're just being contrarian because you've been programmed to think that doing things in the conservative way is better because you feel safer that way. And in your experience, it's worked out for you, but it hasn't really worked out for you, right? It might have worked out for the company you worked for, but it didn't really work out for you. You didn't actually get a massive benefit from that, did you? Maybe you got to keep your job, but that's not the big win you're looking for, right? If you're working for a startup, right? You're working for a startup, you want a bigger win than just keeping your job, I would hope. So yeah, if you're raising funds, if you're in any way involved in the process of raising funds, keep this video, bookmark it, save it, watch it again. If you know people who are raising funds, share it, leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever, come back to it, put in your playlist. I don't care, do whatever you want. Watch it again is the point, so that you can get what the message I'm sending here. Why? Because I've done this for a long time for many companies, and I've helped a lot of companies raise a lot of money in many different fields. I see this all the time, especially in fields involving money, whether it's banking, fintech, investment, companies, VC companies, hedge funds, crypto tokens, crypto NFT projects, whatever it is. Lots of financially related projects and products and services have been disasters, complete and abject failures, because they've always done things the normal way. It's the ones who dare to step beyond the colored lines, beyond the lines, and draw outside the lines, so to speak. Those are the ones that typically are successful, right? And again, look at the outliers throughout history, whether they're the evangelists or product inventors or visionaries. Steve Jobs is always a name that people talk about, right? Albert Einstein, right? McCartney and John Lennon. Anybody you can that is not normative. The same goes for the banking space. The same goes for the tech space. The same goes for, whether you're in software or you run an e-marketing platform or you run a B2B platform or a B2C platform or you run a big marketplace online. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Maybe you're running a new social media platform. It doesn't matter. If you're not willing to step beyond the lines, you will never be exceptionally successful in what you're pursuing. You may raise funds still, but the commitment from your investors will not be as great as it would be if you are a true outlier, right? Investors are looking for true outliers that have a really good chance of giving them outsized returns. Now, there of course there are investors who are looking for boring investments, absolutely. But if you're not an existing company that they can just invest in and not have to think about, if you're a startup, by definition, you're not a boring company. And don't tell me, oh, Elon Musk has the boring company. It's a stupid pun. If you are a startup, you are trying to do something different. You are starting a new business. That means you are not normal in the sense of you are not yet a normal established company. You are not yet a boring company. Investors looking for boring investments go to well-established boring companies. That's what they look for. You're not that if you're a startup looking to raise money for your startup business. You're just not. You can be in the most boring business in the world. You can say, we just want to start another company that lets customers buy gold and silver. That may seem like the most boring business to you in the world. If you're a startup doing that, you're not seen as a boring company. You're perceived as a new business that is unproven, untested, and is outside of the normal means of distribution. What does that mean, right? How can that be? How can it be that you're not a boring established company? Because you're a startup. You haven't proven yourself. And if your method is to be a boring startup, by definition, you're already not normal in the startup realm, because startups do not want to be boring. They want to disrupt. That is the point. Hold on. Right. So again, not to diss anyone. Like, if you can have the most boring style in the world, then that's perfectly fine. If it works for you, it works for you, right? Statistically speaking, right? If you were trying to start a boring gold and silver business, you are doing a traditional boring business, but you're a startup, which means you are not doing things the way they are doing things already, because they already have established processes in place that you just don't have. You don't have the history that they have. Therefore, you're not yet a reliable, well-established firm. You are in a boring space, but you're not yet boring. You're still exciting, because something new and exciting might happen. And if you want to pursue funding for that, the potential investors are going to be more interested in what you're offering if you're not boring. Again, you don't have to agree with me, obviously. Go do your thing. Whatever works for you, works for you. I can tell you, having seen many companies become unicorns because of the efforts of people working around me, and in many cases because of my efforts as well, the ones that typically get the best fundraising offers are not the boring ones. They're just not. Now, again, you may disagree. You may think, oh, no, absolutely. The boring ones, they're the ones to do. They're the ones to imitate. Believe it. Believe it all you want. No problem. It's totally your legitimate right to believe whatever nonsense you want to believe. No one is going to stop you, least of all me. But I'm telling you that in a situation in which you are a startup that wants to actually get outsized returns for yourself and your investors and your clients, you want to help your customers get amazing results from using your products or services, and you want to charge them a not small amount of money, because that's the cost that it is to your business plus the marginal profit that you're looking to make, or you want to raise a lot of money or any amount of money from investors and to deliver them outsized returns on their investment so that they are happy with you and may even invest in your future businesses or your future rounds for the same business, then you do not want to just do the boring thing, in my opinion. Again, what is my opinion? What does it matter? I've been working in marketing, in tech, since 1980. That's 45 years. Most people aren't in this space more than 10, 15 years. Not even close. Most people are in this space 5 to 10 years, 15 on the high end, 20 on the very high end, 25 to 30 on the extremely high end. People who go beyond 30 years, there's a reason for it. It's usually because they're pretty damn good at it. People who are delivering results for their customers can last in a business more than 30 years, in a business like marketing, right? Because typically in marketing, companies assume incorrectly that youth is better than age. Youth is not better than age. It's just a different thing on the scale, but it's not necessarily better or worse. You can have extremely solid young people doing great work in marketing, and you can have extremely solid people who are older doing very effective and powerful work as well. So to assume based on age is foolish, and it happens too much in marketing. I see that all the time. Ageism is a real thing in marketing, especially in the tech space. And we see that affecting companies that invest in companies. We see that affecting startups in how they present themselves. And you can say to me, well, older people like more information on their slides. And I can tell you, no, from experience, that you don't have if you're not an older person, or if you haven't been doing this for decades and decades. You're just wrong. Ask any successful investor. Ask Mark Cuban. What kind of documents does he like to receive from startups? Does he like to receive very heavy documents, or does he like to receive one-pagers? Ask Jeff Bezos. Ask any big investor that's extremely successful. Ask any billionaire. Ask anybody worth hundreds of millions even. They will tell you typically, yeah, I don't want to see that. Ask people that work for massive companies. Like, I remember very clearly, working in a tech lobby in Washington in the 90s, working with extremely large firms as well as small ones. And people who worked for the extremely large firms would make it extremely clear to me they did not want to see business plans, not pitch decks, business plans or proposals for them to buy our high ticket products, like a trade association membership, longer than one page. I'm not talking about one or two companies here. I'm talking about, at the time, giant companies like HP, IBM, Apple, Disney, Bloomberg, Lockheed Martin, etc. Companies like that, Microsoft. They wanted to see details later on in the process of deciding whether or not to do it. But the introductory sales pitch, and even the second and third pitch, if it required one, was always about, why doesn't this fit on one page? And when I say one page, I don't mean 1.5 pages, 2 pages, maybe 3. One page, not both sides of it. One page, one side of one page. That's all they wanted to see. I'm talking about people at massive companies all around the world. And guess what? Even today, throughout the decades, you'd think maybe that changed. Maybe that's just a trend. Maybe that was just popular back then. No. It's even more the case now, because people who are investors or people who work at companies whose job it is to invest in things for those companies, or whose job it is to spend a lot of money to be business customers of those companies, they are inundated by information their door. They're not interested. Now, why am I spending a half hour telling you about this? Because it's important for you to know that if you're in the business of raising money. Nobody else is going to tell you this, right? I do, because I have the experience, and I want you to not mess up. I want you to succeed. So I'm going to end it on that. And I wish you all the best. Much success. Godspeed. See you in the next one. Peace.